Welcome to CBC Windsor News. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for tuning in with us tonight. A family staying in Harrow is recounting a painful separation after being forced to evacuate their home in Yellowknife. Plus, community members and politicians in Sandwich Town say they're shocked after learning a section of Sandwich Street is set to be totally closed to traffic. And do the wasps seem worse this year than others? We chat with an entomologist about the irritating insects. Well, the fires in Northwest Territories have forced one family to evacuate their northern home to Essex County. Now safely tucked away in Harrow, they're recounting a painful separation. The CBC's TJ Deer caught up with them earlier today.
We brought masks in case we needed it down here.
Bev Anderson and her granddaughters, Iris and Scarlett, had to be ready to leave Yellowknife at a moment's notice.
We packed our suitcases, but we put our important stuff in the van, which my daughter is driving.
They flew out of Yellowknife on Thursday, but they weren't pleased with how quickly they had to leave, having only been told Wednesday evening.
It would have been nice to know earlier in the day because almost all the flights were booked. We had to be out of Yellowknife by Friday, 12 p.m. So it was hard to get a flight out of Yellowknife to Vancouver.
The girls had to leave their parents behind, which was too much for Iris.
It's sad, depressing, hurts my feelings. I cry when I think I'm just staying in Yellowknife, but at least Mom's safe and Dad's safe, and we're safe too.
Bev says her daughter had to initially stay in Yellowknife as she's a nurse at a territorial hospital and was deemed an essential worker. After the hospital was emptied, she was able to leave for Alberta. Bev's son-in-law, who's in the Canadian Armed Forces, is staying in Yellowknife to help fight the fires. Bev says spotty cell phone reception has made it difficult for the family to communicate with him.
He's still in the military building. He still lives in our house. He's basically hanging out with his friends still in the building, finding hotspots and trying to put them out.
While Bev brought only the essentials, her granddaughters had to bring things that were special to them. Iris brought her blanket and her favorite dolls, whereas Scarlett brought a string given to her by her dad, who got it at an Alice Cooper concert. Bev's son-in-law told the family that they won't be able to return soon.
We were talking to their dad last night, and he said it might be a couple more weeks here before we can go back.
Until then, everyone is trying to make the best out of a bad situation. TJ Deer, CBC News, Harrow.
The wildfire that forced thousands of people out of Yellowknife is now about 15 kilometers from the city. And while crews have managed to beat back the flames from reaching the capital, the threat remains. There are hundreds of people who've moved across the country to safety, like the story you just watched. Madeline Cummings looks at how Albertans are stepping up to help.
Thousands of wildfire evacuees from the Northwest Territories have temporarily settled in Alberta. And though food and shelter is available, expenses and needs are piling up. So volunteers are springing into action to fill the gaps. In the city of Leduc, just south of Edmonton, 4 women have been gathering and distributing donations since Saturday. Dozens of people have asked them for help on social media.
It's pretty emotional for a lot of people, for sure. Especially when somebody said to me, he said, "You're renewing my faith in humanity." And so that was like, whoa. You don't want to cry. I'm trying not to be emotional here. But it's pretty impressive, And just knowing that they've lost everything.
Wheeler says evacuees need microwavable meals, underwear, and laundry detergent. And the longer people remain here, the more help they'll need. In Yellowknife, rain has helped firefighters manage the wildfire near the city. But the situation is more dire in the south, with fires threatening the communities of Hay River and Fort Smith.
Today is going to be a really challenging day for these fires. We've got winds with a southerly component in Fort Smith, and we've got temperatures that are supposed to reach up to 27 degrees in the area, and that could push the fire towards the community.
Back in Leduc, Wheeler and her daughter have set up supplies for evacuees staying at a local campground. Another volunteer has been visiting hotels. With no timeline for evacuees to return home, volunteers expect they'll be busy over the days to come. Madeline Cummings, CBC News, Leduc, Alberta.
Some West End residents say they feel deceived. That's after finding out last minute that a portion of Sandwich Street is set to be closed due to construction on the Gordie Howe Bridge. Today, business owners, residents, and politicians met to voice their concerns.
Somebody made a decision somewhere just basically to, keep this quiet, and that's kind of what's happened.
In just 2 weeks from now, a stretch of Sandwich Street will be closed for the next 2 months. The local councillor and MPs say there's a number of issues with the plan, but perhaps the biggest one?
The community has not been consulted about what's about to transpire.
They were included in consultations until it wasn't convenient.
Costante says he found out a week ago that the Detroit-Windsor Bridge Authority was closing Sandwich Street between Chappelle Avenue and Ojibwe Parkway, supposedly starting September 5th. A Bridge Authority document says through traffic will be maintained, although it may be reduced to 1 lane at times.
Now we're in the 11th hour. We're learning about all of this for the first time, and I think we can do better, and I think we absolutely should do better.
The traffic will be rerouted onto Prince Road, an already busy stretch that includes 2 school zones.
It's not just the redirection of vehicles, it's the redirection of trucks that are carrying all this material that are going to be now in a high-density residential neighborhood.
The concern not just for residents, but businesses in the heart of Sandwich Town, who say they rely on the traffic that comes up Sandwich Street from Amherstburg and LaSalle areas.
This isn't very much notice for me to be able to come up with some sort of solution or game plan moving forward for my business and for everyone working for me.
And to have this thrown at us is unbelievable. I wish maybe they would take the dictionary, look up the word consult, and see what it means.
Costante says the city's engineering department has already approved the permit. The next time City Council meets will be after the construction is set to start.
I find this completely unacceptable, and I'm asking the parties to reconsider along with Brian.
A spokesperson for the Detroit-Windsor Bridge Authority says Bridging North America was not required to undertake a traffic study for the project. It said this proposed approach with a full closure is different than originally considered as a result of consultation with the road authority, and said it's further reviewing the proposed approach based on community feedback. The spokesperson noted the closure does not extend the entire length of Sandwich Street, and said the Bridge Authority understands the importance of mitigating the impacts of construction to the greatest extent possible. CBC Windsor is still waiting to hear back from the city. Well, I don't know about you, but the wasps have really been bugging me lately. It seems like you can't sit outside without spotting an unwanted guest, and I know others are noticing it too. Dale Molnar explains to us why they're here and what you can do to make them buzz off.
The wasps have been a bit intense this year.
Adriano Chodoli runs Windsor Eats. He says this is the worst wasp season he's ever seen.
On some days, normally when our patio is absolutely packed, everyone is taking cover indoors, and the patio will remain practically empty, just because the moment they grab food or bring a drink outside, the table is absolutely covered by dozens of them.
So bad that he says some restaurants have had to temporarily close their patios, such as the Twisted Apron on Wyandotte Street East. One hostess even got stung.
I was clearing a table in the middle of a lunch rush on a weekend, and it was in the napkin that I was picking up, and I didn't see it, and so it got me just on my hand. And it's just not a pleasant experience eating here if you're going to be swarmed by bees, so it's for everyone's benefit to just shut it down for now.
According to an entomologist we spoke with, the wasps can sense your food from a long distance away. So it doesn't take long before you have interlopers. Entomologists say the wasps come out this time of year because they are no longer needed to feed young wasps in the colonies, so they are free to head out on feeding binges. Weather may also be playing a factor.
But the conditions at different times of the year might mean that they've been particularly successful, or you might have had a winter that allowed more of the colonies, more of those reproductive females to sort of overwinter, and so you have more colonies than you would in a normal year.
But Gibbs says on the bright side, they do control other pests, such as mosquitoes. Chodoli puts out traps like this one to try to control the unwanted guests.
So all this is just a little plastic contraption that you can get at any shop or hardware store, and you fill it with a sugar water solution. The bees go in and then they can't get out, and they're pretty standard.
He also uses a spray mixture of mint oil and water on the tables.
And hopefully, the theory is the yellow jackets don't like the taste or the smell of mint.
But it doesn't always work.
It didn't work very well at all. But we like to think, we try to be positive and say, oh, no, it kept like maybe one or two of the bees away.
The scientists say the yellow jackets will go away once the cooler weather sets in. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The housing situation in Canada is a key subject for the federal cabinet as it meets today and tomorrow in Charlottetown. The primary responsibility for housing usually falls to provincial and municipal governments, but the federal Liberals believe there is action they can take. And the immigration minister says restricting international students could be a place to start.
There's no ignoring the volume and the impact that 700,000 international students can be having on housing. It's not the entirety of the equation, but certainly we have to think about the options that present ourselves to us.
Canada wanted to welcome about 450,000 international students by the end of last year, but instead there were more than 800,000 in the country. Although the government says immigration is not to blame for the housing crisis, which is rooted in decades of underinvestment, particularly in social housing. Well, a Winnipeg family is looking for answers. That's after they were getting ready to bury a loved one when he turned up alive. They had been told days earlier by police he was the victim of a homicide. Brittany Greenslade has the story.
All I remember is the police standing there at the door when I opened the door.
One knock on their apartment door changed their lives. In the next few moments, Judy Panchenko and her partner Cheryl were told their grandson Peter was dead.
He's been killed. He's dead. And so we cry for a second, and then in a space of a few minutes, we realized that Peter has not just dead, but he's been murdered. He was stabbed, murdered, set on fire.
Police told the couple the 35-year-old's body was found in Point Douglas on April 27th. They were told he was burned and unrecognizable.
As soon as they said where it was, I said, it's not Peter.
Things didn't add up. While Peter is homeless and they have minimal contact with him, they told police they had a Facebook message from him on May 8th, more than a week after the murder.
Hey, Mom, how are you? Sorry I haven't been online for a while. I just got a new phone.
They were told his account was likely hacked. Cheryl says police were adamant the deceased was Peter and dental records had confirmed it. He was missing his upper teeth and had recent facial surgery matching the victim's.
We said, are you sure that this is? He said 99.9%.
But 8 days later, his dad, Shane Monroe, got an alert on his cell phone when his doorbell camera went off.
I'm looking at the door and there's Peter. He says, I'm not dead, Dad. I says, yeah, I can see that.
The family had been in the midst of planning his funeral.
1 minute you're crying because of what they've said, and then the next minute you're elated because it's not the truth.
They alerted police and then the medical examiner's office.
So do you have any idea what you put this family through?
The medical examiner's office refused an interview request by CBC and would not provide any information on how the mistake happened, but say the situation is rare, if not unprecedented. The family is demanding changes at the medical examiner's office to ensure a mistake like this never happens again.
I don't need a lame excuse. I want to know what truly happened, how you came to the process of identifying Peter, and what measures can go into place so it never happens to another family again.
Police also declined an interview with CBC, but say they took the family's concerns seriously and were still looking for Peter even after the identification was made. Police tell CBC they believe the true victim has now been identified and are working with the family to confirm. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A situation you hope to never find yourself in. 6 children and 2 teachers were pulled to safety from a cable car in the northwest part of Pakistan.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
The students and at least one teacher were taking the cable car to get to school when one of two cables snapped, leaving them dangling almost 300 meters above a remote ravine. Military helicopters managed to get one person to safety, but that effort was called off over fears the draft would cause the gondola to fall. After several hours, rescuers made their way carefully along the remaining cable and brought the trapped passengers out the same way. A Windsor woman's love for cars was on full display this weekend. Deanne Leona Humphrey showed off her 2013 Dodge Charger SRT at the Woodward Dream Cruise in Detroit. But she says there's still a misconception out there that power cars like hers are only for men.
It's my happy place, you know. It just, you know, if I'm stressed out or anything, I can get in here and it's like, yeah, it's my happy place. I love driving, so it's just put the tunes on and I go for a cruise. Mine is already 10 years old. It's a 2013 Dodge Charger SRT. All those pieces that you see are all custom pieces, ordered, engraved, and my theme is the dragon. So I got the dragon shooting flames, and you see it on the insulation of the motor here. This is hydro dipping that I did. I even took my mom with me. My mom passed away in 2020, so I took a picture of her dancing in her wedding dress, and I put Mama, which is in French for mom, with a little heart. So she comes with me on all my rides. So they're all custom pieces, and I go to the States, so I made sure that I had the Canadian flag when I go to the States.
What's it like when people see you with your car?
They think it's my husband's car. It is not my husband's car. It's 2023, guys. Women drive nice, powerful cars.
You gotta love all those small details there. Well, coming up after the break, we check in with Colette Kennedy about what's in store for the last bit of August. Okay, Colette, I do this thing in August where I never check the temperature before leaving the house because I just assume it's going to be really warm. It's August. But today I really got burnt, and not by the sun. It felt much cooler out there today than it looked.
And you know, we really are seeing the kind of weather pattern that you could get burnt by. And I don't mean necessarily, well, it can be sunburn, but just because of the fluctuations. And so I'm going to kind of start with the tropics and what's brewing here, and then work our way towards these fluctuations into southwestern Ontario. So it's become very active. We're getting kind of to the peak. It's sort of mid-August to mid-October, the busiest part of the Atlantic hurricane season, generally what we see, and kind of peaks around just September, between September 10th and 15th. So there is Tropical Storm Franklin bringing some really heavy rains with the risk of some mudslides and some flooding, certainly in the Dominican and Haiti there as well, and that's going to travel north to northeast. And then today, earlier today, Tropical Storm Harold making landfall close to the border with Texas and Mexico. So heavy rains, and again, some coastal flooding concerns there. And all of that is kind of being the steering current is around this heat dome across the U.S. You can see where the cooler contours are here because of the remnants of Hillary and then from Harold today. But that sort of belly of the heat is right there in the Midwest, right on our doorstep too. Chicago at 32, 10 degrees warmer than Windsor at 22, but that is going to start to nose towards us, and so we'll kind of come into it and then be on the fringes. The warm front right about there. Yeah, we're on the cooler side of it. We get into some off and on showers, especially into tomorrow, even a risk of a thunderstorm overnight tonight with that boundary. You can also see, because of the contrast in those temperatures, it can really ramp up the winds. So we could have some windy conditions here too through Wednesday, into Wednesday night, into Thursday. And Thursday we kind of move into the warm slot. So we're likely to see our temperatures headed up to the low 30s on that day, and then it recedes and we go back in kind of upper 20s. But yeah, just sort of maybe do pay attention. Look at the temperature and the forecast when you're heading out, so you're not caught off guard in terms of what we're going to be seeing for these next few days, because look at that variation, Meg, right? And then cooler into the weekend behind that system.
Okay, Colette, note to self, in the morning, check the weather forecast. Okay, I'll do that. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, giraffes are comprised of some very unique qualities, but one that was just born at a Tennessee zoo is missing something recognizable. We have more on that coming up. The Muppets have been a family entertainment staple for generations. The characters live on today, even though creator Jim Henson has been gone for more than 30 years. But even though he's no longer around, one of his cartoonists is still introducing those lovable characters to a whole new generation. CBC caught up with him while he was in Fredericton for a fan fest over the weekend.
My name's Guy. What's your name? Alexa? Hi. You like Miss Piggy? She's a boss like you? Okay, I'll draw you Miss Piggy. Do you know I've been drawing Miss Piggy now for 43 years? The reason I draw is to make you happy. And I get to see you being happy right in front of me as I create something. And that means the world to me. When I was very, very little and my mom was working at a diner and she would give me paper and pencils and open up the comics and tell me to draw all day so that she wouldn't get fired and I'd stay out of the way, you know. When I realized I could draw something, make something out of nothing and give it to someone and make them smile, that was everything to me. Oh, here's Bean Bunny, and he started out in the Bunny Picnic. Here's some of the Labyrinth characters. There's Bowie. I'm so happy to be here. You know, flying into Toronto to catch the connecting flight to Fredericton, it was very nostalgic feeling for me because I remember flying into Toronto in about 1983 to see Jim while he was filming a Miss Piggy special over at Channel 9. Whenever I draw a picture of Kermit the Frog, I'm either writing part of a song that Jim sang as Kermit, or many times I'll write a quote from Jim. What's very important to me is that people remember Jim's philosophies and his character, the emotions behind the characters, the idea of inclusion and universal love. It's about all of us being all different, you know, whether you're a pig, a frog, a bear, or a gonzo, we're all different. That difference is what is celebrated. If I can leave anything behind, I want it to be very, very well known that my very favorite drawing, my very favorite Muppet is the one that I'm drawing for you. And the one that means the most to you. It means everything to me.
Well, a zoo in Tennessee has a very odd-looking newborn, quite easy to spot because she is the only giraffe without spots.
We've been in contact with zoo professionals all over the country, and especially the old-timers that have been around for a long time. Hey, have you seen this? What's your thoughts? And nobody's seen it.
Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.